From all over the world, culture is a historical phenomenon wherein ideas, practices, traditions, values, and norms has its own historical beginnings. It started by innovation and spread to individuals, passed on from generation to generation. Culture had influenced our ways of living, defined our racial origins, developed our personalities and characters, and established our ethical standards. A blessed day. This is Jubilin Elducal from Isabella Colleges reporting about ethics and culture. And to begin with, what is culture? Culture is defined as the complex whole which includes knowledge, beliefs, arts, morals, laws, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. So it says here that culture is a social heritage. It is transmitted from one generation to another and shared. The knowledge, the beliefs, the customs, the habits and laws are commonly shared by a number of people and transmitted to their children. And up to this moment, our culture has a great impact in our moral behavior, and one of the most onerous concepts in understanding moral behavior is cultural relativism. Cultural relativism is the idea that a person's beliefs, values, and practices should be understood based on that person's own culture, rather than be judged against the criteria of another. Meaning, do not judge others' culture of what is right and what is wrong. Instead, we should open our mind to accept and understand that cultural practices and beliefs. Like for example, in the case of performing FGM or female genital mutilation, or it is known as female circumcision. In the United States of America, it is immoral, but in African nation, it is acceptable. Another thing is abortion. In Japan, it is legal or acceptable, but in our country, Philippines, it is an immoral act. When we come to think of it, how or what comes to their minds that these kinds of practices are acceptable to their culture? Of course, they have their own reasons. And the reasons of African nation why they are still performing FGM is that number 1, preservation of virginity. Number 2, marriageability and enhancement of male sexual pleasure. And number 3 is religion. And Japan, the reasons of Japan, while abortion is very legal to them, is that number 1, the high chance of genetic disorder. Number 2, when a woman is divorced. And number 3 is when the pregnancy was a result of rape. So, and as a respect to cultural differences, always consider the view and the ideas and reasons of their moral beliefs and practices. Do not judge or question it anymore. Let's continue. If we abide the rules or attain the standards of our society, we are considered as normal. But contradicting it or going against the norms may outcast us from the group. Why? Because norms refer to social cultural regulations and decrees that govern the everyday activities of people, inclusive of its moral, ethical imperatives, customs, and cultural practices. Norms may change due to our environment, and it may also affect people's behavior. Like for example, when we have a friend from other country and came to visit us and decided to stay long, that person, due to his new environment, he will adopt our culture little by little. But it is up to him if it is acceptable to his social or cultural context. And through the process of socialization, the awareness to do what is right and wrong and to do things or not to do is still reflecting to his or her acquired culture. Since culture is persistent in being transmitted from generation to generation, hence it is also called continuum. And how do we think that culture influences our behavior? Our culture played an important role in our society, and no individual can avoid its influence, especially in decision making, and it's greatly affect our behavior. Take the case of drinking and smoking. We already know that it is really bad for our health, but still we do it. This is because an individual is unavoidably influenced by the practices of his community and culture. Let's go on to the Filipino way. In our country today, moral issues affect our daily lives. The left and right corruption from different government agencies, religious conflicts, poverty, violating of human rights, and the COVID-19 crisis. All of these issues hinders us to meet the high level of morality. Look at Gorospe's list about the distinct Filipino moral norms. Number 1 is group-centeredness or groupthink. It is perfectly caused as Filipino conscience from the outside. Why? Because we always think of what other tells about us, or we are afraid to hear negative words against us. Like for example, when we have a visitor and we know that we don't have enough money to serve them good food. And what we do is we were going to borrow money to our neighbor just to present good food to our visitor. Because we always think that nakakahiya na wala kang ipapaharap na masarap na pagkain sa iyong bisita. And that is wrong. Very wrong. Number 2 is the don't be caught attitude based on shame or fear to the authority figure. This is very rampant because we only obey rules when someone sees us. But if there is none, we violate the rules. Like for example, when the government ordered the ECQ or enhanced community quarantine, and they declared the liquor ban. What happened? Still, a lot of Filipino don't really mind what was ordered since they are not being caught by the authorities. Number 3 is complacency when one is aware but is not concerned. We know it already, but we choose to keep silent. Just like when we saw our kumpare with another woman, and just to keep his family, we decide to keep it secret, without thinking that it may result to much worse situation. And the last one is rationalization. We already know or aware to wrongdoings, but we always find excuses because we always think that this life, that's life, we are only human. Just like a story that I had read about an ethics professor who serves as a consultant in major ethical dilemmas and legal cases all over the world. Again and again, he provides deep insights into complex moral questions, and his opinions have influenced corporate decisions of global significance. But The professor himself is not ethical. He cheats on his wife, and he embraces the university by his public behavior. Now, this man knows the law. He has deep insights into right and wrong, but his knowledge doesn't affect the way he lives. He's like a pianist who has all the notes in front of him but doesn't play the music. Or he's like the builder who has all the plans and materials but doesn't build the building.